It starts off with a really good dad joke. I love this guy. He's the humanity, because hue is another name for color. And he's a manatee, and he loves you. All right, so what we're talking about today is color. We are going to dive really deep into color. Color is, of course, one of the elements of design. We have been using it to describe artwork so far. You have been very exposed to color all your life. It's probably one of the first things you learned when it came to art and art making. You know, the first crayons they were held in your sticky little fist when you were a little child. And learning colors, that's one of the first things we teach children, is how to describe what they want by color. And it's something that, again, is all around us, but there is something also very, very interesting that happens with color. It is a very scientific thing. And this is kind of that place where art and science kind of overlap. So I love this. I love this stuff. This is where I really nerd out. I get really excited when I teach color theory in art class. So get ready, buckle up. You're going to learn some really weird stuff the next couple days. All right, so color and color theory. Color theory is something that you see art students learn. I've took a whole class in college called art theory because it's very complicated stuff. You can get really into it, but we're gonna keep it fun. We're gonna keep it simple, and just touch the basics here. So first things first, what is color? What really is happening when you look at something? Well, white light is what you see coming through a window from like the sun, coming from lights above your head, from your screen, on your phone. That's all white light. And white light is, it comes, onto a surface. It bounces off of that surface at a specific wavelength. If you learn in physics about color and about light, you learn that different colors have different wavelengths. Like some are really high, some are really low. And depending on whatever the surface is, like this green book I have here, light comes in, bounces off the surface, and the wavelength of the surface color is seen by my eye. Very strange phenomenon. But if you take white light, the same light that bounces off that green book, and you break it up using something like a prism, which, as you see in the picture on the left here, is a piece of glass that looks like a triangle or a pyramid, it'll break that white light up into a rainbow. And that rainbow is known as the visual spectrum. There are other kinds of things that we can't see, like infrared and X-rays and things like that, that are also part of the spectrum. But the visual spectrum, that's one we can see. You can't see X-rays. We also see this phenomenon. If you don't have a prism, you can see this happen. Usually we see this happening in parking lots where there's a puddle, and if there's oil that leaked from a car, it'll create this thing, it'll break up the light that's reflected off that puddle into the rainbow. So it's kind of like a liquid prism. And then around 1600, people are realizing, like, oh, wow, look how the light comes through this bit of glass and breaks up into the rainbow. Well, Isaac Newton decided, I'm going to put that rainbow in a circle. I'm going to categorize these colors into specific sections, and I'm going to put it on a wheel. I'm going to call it the color wheel. Isaac Newton, if you don't know, he's the guy that there's always an illustration of him sitting under a chair or an apple tree, and like an apple falls down and hits him on the head or lands on his lap, and he's like, oh wow, gravity. So he's like the grandfather of gravity. Um, he's a very famous scientist back 400 years ago. But he's also the guy that came up with the color wheel. It's not just a torture device that art teachers have come up with to make their students angry. It's actually a tool that makes sense, and we'll see why in a second here. So our color wheel, no matter what, like look here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like 10 different kinds of color wheels on this page. They are all going to look the same in the sense that you always have the colors in the same order. These color wheels never change the order of the colors in the wheel. Right? Red is always next to oranges and purples. It's never near greens and blues, ever. All right, we'll see why in a second. All right, so the color wheel is divided into 3 categories. We have our first category, first primary category. So the first category, primary, we've got red, yellow, and blue. So red, yellow, and blue. This triangle in the middle points to each one of these colors. These colors are very special. I forgot to mention this first period, and I'll have to remind myself, tell them tomorrow. But the primary colors are incredibly important and incredibly special because you can't make them. All right, you can't mix any colors together to make blue. You can try, but you'll waste a lot of paint if you have paint to mix. You can't make blue, can't make yellow, you can't make red. So how do we get them? Well, they're made with chemicals and stuff like that. So actually way back when painters, before they had chemicals, they could buy, they didn't have Amazon, like Isaac Newton didn't have Amazon, right? So what he did and what other painters did, and people who were interested in color, they went out and they actually crushed up rocks and different minerals to make colors themselves. And you can see these names. If you look at color names, you'll actually see some of these old names like cadmium. I don't know, you don't have to, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but there are actual like colors that have mineral names because that's the mineral that they used to crush up and mix with oils and such to make colors. Yeah, cobalt is a mineral that was used to make blue because it's blue mineral. So they crush it up, mix it with oils, and they paint beautiful things. Those of you who like playing Minecraft, you should know a lot of colors because all those different things you dig up in that game. All right, I'm getting off topic. All right, so we have our color wheel with our primary colors in the middle here, in this triangle pointing at their locations, right? Next, secondary. It helps that the second group is secondary. So second group of colors. We get them by mixing primary colors. So if I took yellow and red, and if I mix those 2 colors together, I get orange. If I take yellow and blue, 2 primary colors, primary yellow, primary blue, mix these together, I get a secondary color called green. Some of the stuff is, like, yeah, Ms. Hayes, I know, but look where it's located now in the color wheel. These colors are put in the wheel because of the relationships they have with each other. Green will always be located between yellow and blue. It will never be anywhere else in the color wheel because yellow and blue mixed together make green. So it's almost like a map. It's kind of like following a recipe. There's different ways to really use the color wheel to tell you how to make colors and what relationships they have to each other. So then over here we have blue and red. Mix these together, we get violet. Now violet's kind of an old-fashioned word. Violet also means purple. So if I use the word violet, it means purple. And if I use the word purple, it means violet. It's the only color here that has like two different words to describe it, but they're the same color. Unless you're the people who make my hair dye and you think it's two different colors and I get really mad because it's not, but they think it is. Whatever. Anyway, let's get to the third one. So tertiary, that's the third category of color. Now, it's pronounced tertiary. The TI right here in the middle, it's pronounced with that sh noise, like nation. Nation has that TI as well. So tertiary. And tertiary, basically, I like to think it means third. And that helps me to remember that because tertiary and third start with the letter T. So the third colors we can make, you make the third color by mixing the first and the second. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. So we have our primary red, mix it with our secondary orange, and we get something called red-orange. The cool thing about tertiary colors is their name tells you how it's made. So we have primary yellow, mix it with the secondary green. Yellow plus green equals yellow-green. So this is how we know that we can't move these colors around the color wheel. Yellow-green always has to be between yellow and green. You can't move it. All right, it's like pulling somebody out of a neighborhood and pushing them somewhere else and telling them they have to live there. No, let them stay there. Their name tells you where they belong. All right, so let's move on here. Here's a great little video. I hope it doesn't get too choppy. But yes, it's from Sesame Street. I don't care. But it's made by one of the greatest video makers of all time, a band called OK Go. This song is an earworm. It will stick in your head all day long, I hope. And it'll teach you, you know, about what I just talked about.
Oh, there are 3 primary colors. Only 3 are primary, it's true. The world is full of every kind of color, but we're just talking red, yellow, and blue. Red, yellow, yellow, blue. These 3 are the primaries, it's true. Oh, there are 3 primary colors. Only 3 are primary, it's true. But if you mix the primaries together, brand new colors come right into view. Red and yellow make orange. Red and yellow make orange. Yellow and blue make green. Yellow and blue make green. Blue and red make purple. Blue and red make purple. And that's a lot of colors to be seen. There are 3 primary colors, and lots of other colors out there too. But when you see any other color, they're all made up of red, yellow, and blue. Red and yellow make what? Red and yellow make orange. Right. Yellow and blue make what? Yellow and blue make. That's right. Blue and red make what? Blue and red make purple. Right. That's a lot of colors to be seen. Oh, there are 3.
Okay, yeah, I love that song. I've been playing that for years. I can't help it. I love it. So if you like the look of that video, though, I suggest you look up other videos by the band OK Go, because they are brilliant. Just lots what you just saw there, like stop animation. Such a cool thing. Anyway, so we now have like this categorized thing of where colors belong in relationship to one another in this wheel. All right, so organized wheel. But those are really basic colors: red, and orange. We're not talking about how we can change those colors, right? So here it is. We can add neutrals, black and white. If you notice, black and white are not on that color wheel. They're more seen as like a tool to use to make other colors. If you want to talk to like some real strict color theory fans, they won't call black and white color at all. They're colors to me, but it's a technical thing, but they're used to make other colors change. So right here on this chart, we have tints and shades. Now a tint is a color that is lightened, made lighter, by adding white to it. So we add white to a color or a hue, and we create colors like pink or peach, baby blue. And the way I like to remember that is, let me cover that up. I'll use my phone to cover it up. There we go. So we have, this is how I like to remember it. We have tint. To create a tint, you add white, and it makes it light. And all three of these words have the letter I right in the middle. All right, so if we want to make something dark, we create a shade by adding black. So colors like navy blue or burgundy are dark versions of blue and red. And to remember that one, we have shade. To create a shade, we add black. It makes it dark. And all three of these words have letter A in the middle. That's how I like to remember things. This is the way I like to memorize. Create sort of a pattern. That way I never forget it. There's another thing called tone. I don't teach it, but if you add black and white together, you make gray. And that's called a tone. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about tint and shade. It's just like a recipe. If you have more of one ingredient in a recipe, it's going to taste more like that one thing you have more of. So if you're making a color lighter, you want to have a lot of white and a little bit of the color, and it makes it really, really pale. Like the very end of that top row, we have a super pale purple. There's a lot of white and a little bit of purple. And if we just change the ratio, change how much of the color is there versus the white, it gets much darker. So on the other side of that top row, we have a lot of purple, a little bit of white. And the same thing's happening on the row below. So when we did this back in September, we did some value scales. You showed me how to how you press harder to make a darker pencil mark, and you press lighter when you wanted to create a lighter mark. You can't really press down harder with a paintbrush and make something look darker. So you have to mix these colors if you're painting. Or you can mix colors too with color pencils. You can layer these on top of each other to change if they're lighter or darker. All right, so the next slide, we have warm versus cool. So somebody thought, okay, if I divide the color wheel in half, these colors on this side, from yellow down to red violet or red purple, this collection of colors from the color wheel look warm. They remind people of things like fire or the sun, sunsets, things like that, things that are very hot. Then over here, we have the cool colors. So these are colors that go from yellow, green down to violet or purple. And this side of the color wheel, so people thought it reminded them of things that are cool to the touch. Things like grass kind of has a cool touch to it, or plants. Plants usually don't feel hot. They don't feel warm, unless they've been sitting in the sun on a hot day, but by themselves inside of a room, they feel kind of cool. And water kind of feels the same way. If you look at artists who paint things like what Chicago feels like right now, they'd use a lot of blue to kind of make it feel icy and cold. So we can use that as artists to make our works of art have a feeling to them, like this piece here, which uses cool colors, right? Am I wrong? What kind of colors does this use? Warm or cool colors? You can put it in the chat box if you want. Is this a warm painting or is it a cool painting? Temperature-wise. Oh yeah, there we go. It's warm, very, very warm. What does it remind you of? What does it look like to you? If you could take a guess as to what it is. A sunset has that feel to it, doesn't it? Or a sunrise. Hey, do sunsets or sunrises look different? I've never really figured that one out. Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a warmth of a sun and maybe it's setting or rising and it just, yeah, it's hot, right? Somebody in first period says it looks like a desert. I was like, that it kind of looks like a desert, does it? They do look different. I think Ada, I'm gonna have to go and do some research on my own. Wake up in the morning and look versus staying up at night or afternoon. I forget. Sunset so early. All right, let's switch over to the other side of the color wheel here. It could be a field of wheat, right? Maybe a field of wheat at sunset. Maybe that could have been what it is. I honestly forgot what that painting is. It's been so long. All right, so here I have another painting. And if you were in that boat, would you want a sweater or would you be wearing a t-shirt? Yeah, I'm a person who kind of runs hot a lot. I'm very warm. I'd want a sweater. Hey, being on water is always cold, always colder than being on land. And yeah, you got to get a sweater if you want to hang out with these guys in the boat. This looks like sunrise to me. Maybe it'll be a warmer day, but definitely cold right at this moment in this painting. And the neat thing is that you can really use this knowledge. You can kind of play around with cool colors versus warm colors. They just look interesting when you put them against each other, but they can also make you feel invited into an area, or it can also make you feel like you're uninvited. And what I mean by that is this painting here. This is by Vincent van Gogh. I use him a lot because he really understood color. This guy just nailed it with color. And in this painting here, he's showing you this cold, cool night. You can see the stars in the sky. We can see the buildings, a tree here. These are all cool colors, greens, blues. And then we have this really warm, glowing area. This is sort of like a cafe or a diner, and it's a little outdoor area. You can see the waiter standing here and the tables, and it just invites us in. It's sort of a welcome to us in this cold night. And it's a really great way that he used color to make our eye look there, to make us focus our attention in that one area, and to make us feel sort of welcome. Human beings instinctually want to feel comfort. We want to feel warm, and we want to, even if we don't like people, we still want to be around people most of the time, especially if we're feeling threatened or we're cold. So this is a really cool way of using that and kind of playing on psychology. The dog does look sad, doesn't it? I think most dogs always look sad though. Maybe it's just me. But adding blue to that painting really does make that dog feel even sadder, doesn't it? Colors can really affect our emotions. They can make us feel a certain way, and they can make the person looking at the painting have a different reaction to the painting as well, or drawing. All right, so we're going to talk now about how colors affect other colors. This is more a scientific thing that happens, but I want you to look at that top row. The red inside every one of those squares is the exact same red. I've tested this. I've taken this and I've taken it apart. I've double checked to make sure that that is correct, and it is. Trust me. So even with that knowledge, knowing that's the exact same red, which red looks the reddest? Which red really just goes, I'm red, I'm so red? Which one would you say? The one that's surrounded by black, the one that's surrounded by white, the one that's surrounded by orange, or the one that's surrounded by blue? Which of the reds looks the reddest? Okay. Yeah, there we go. The one in the black, right? I mean, I definitely think the one of myself, the one in the red that's surrounded by black looks really red. I think the white is pretty good too, but it's really bright, isn't it? Remember that if you are going to somewhere fancy and you want to wear a nice bright red dress or bright red suit, have the person who's with you wear black. Now, which of those reds is like the dullest or like the least red? Which of those reds looks the least red? Yeah, isn't that weird? It kind of just washes it out, right? The orange really makes it look, ugh. It's a technical term, by the way. So let's figure out why. Okay, I'm gonna go back here. Just to show you a color wheel. Look who's close to red. Orange is a really close neighbor. And because they're close to each other on the color wheel, they kind of wash each other out. They're two alike. It's like sisters, right? They have a lot of things in common, right? So what we want to do, if you want to have a color really, yeah, they're almost the same. You want to have a color really pop, look weird, and have like a very strange look to it. You want to put that color somewhere with a color on the opposite side of the color wheel. So if we look at, let me go ahead and forward again. All right. It's not exactly opposite, but I'll talk about this in a second. I want you to look closely at this red here. And hopefully your screen is doing the same thing my screen is doing. And it looks almost like that red has a black outline or a shadow, like it's casting a shadow. So that red box that's in the blue looks like it has an outline, or it's like popping off the page a little bit. There's nothing there. I guarantee you there is nothing there. What's happening is those colors are so different from each other, and they both live on the color wheel, unlike black and white, and they fight. They visually fight in your eyes. It is a weird phenomenon when you get colors that are really different. They just make this sort of electricity happen in your eyes. And I was saying in first period, I have a slide that I'm not going to show because it could potentially give a person a seizure. It is so visually offensive because the colors are fighting so much that the picture looks like it's moving. I have a much more subdued version of that I'm going to show you later on, if not today, then tomorrow. So I just don't want to trigger any seizures because that is something that happens. There are people that are very sensitive to visual images like that, and it can actually bug them out, basically. It makes my eyes hurt whenever I look at this stuff. But yeah, it's a physical thing that people can actually have a reaction to stuff like that. So it's happening in a very subtle way right now, like showing you that there's this outline that doesn't exist. All right, and then the purple ones, same thing is happening down there, but we're talking about sort of the darkness of the purple and how one of them really washes out that rectangle in the middle, so it's a little harder to see. All right, so this, let's see, what time is it? Okay, good. This right here, we're going to spend some more time on a bit of time on this stuff. This is where we take the color wheel and we start using it in a very strategic way. So instead of grabbing the entire box of crayons and like going to town and going crazy with all the crayons, we want to be really specific and using just a small portion of the colors available to us. We can create these wonderful harmonies. We can create different feelings, emotions. We can manipulate how people react to our work too. And knowing how these different color combinations can be created is a really, really good tool to use and to have. So this is what the next section of this presentation is going to be about. I'm going to show you 5, more like 4, of these major color combinations and talk about why they work and what works with them and what they do. All right, so the first one here is called monochromatic. So right here, this illustration, we're using just the blue. Everything else is kind of washed out. We're not using any of these colors here, just blue. Because monochromatic is a painting or a drawing, a work of art that uses only one color mixed with black and white. Because remember, black and white aren't on these color wheels, right? They're not a part of the color wheel. We use them to change the colors on the color wheel, turn them into tints and shades and tones. If we look at the word monochromatic, break it down into 2. The first part, mono, means one. It's like one of those root words like from Latin. Mono means one. And chroma, which is in the middle of chromatic here, chroma means color. So one color, monochromatic. And this painting here by, ooh, I'm going to forget the guy's name. Mark Tansey. How about that? Somebody I studied in college. He made this painting and he used black, white, and blue. And that's it. No other colors. Whole box of crayons only uses 3. But look at the differences that you can get from that. You can blend just those 3 colors together and get so many other colors. Yeah. Monotone. Yeah, see, there we go. Tone is great. I'm done. Drop the mic. See, no. So, you know, when someone talks in a monotone voice, it's one, it just, right? If I talk to you in a monotone voice, you'd probably fall asleep. I like to talk with many different sounds in my voice, so I keep you awake. Also, because I get excited about this stuff. So think about that. So this painting here, monochromatic. Love it. And it's also kind of a funny painting because, again, it's kind of like a dad joke. The shuttle has been in the air for like 4 seconds, maybe. but the paintings that they have of this shuttle launch are almost finished. So it's a visual kind of joke. It's a stretch, I know. That's why I call it a dad joke. Because dad jokes are really, oof. All right, let's go to the next one. Complementary. I just love complementary colors. They're so interesting because they fight. Complementary colors are colors that are opposites from each other on the color wheel. Remember when I showed you the box that had the red in the middle and the blue around it, and they kind of had that outline? This is how you use that in artwork. So the picture of the girl has red and green on her face. And if you look at the color wheel, red and green can't be further from each other. They are complete opposites from each other on the color wheel. And what that does, it makes us feel very uneasy. There's something kind of wrong. These colors don't mix together. We're used to seeing red and green together because of Christmas, though. So we do have that familiarity with these two colors being together. Like she might be at a Christmas party, maybe. That's a weird, very weird photograph of somebody. Like this would never be used as like, a senior photo. Unless you had a very strange personality, maybe. But these colors are fighting. And it gives us sort of like a weird feeling when we look at it. In the comic book down there, in the lower right corner, the artist used mainly purple and yellow. And you can see on the color wheel, purple and yellow, again, complete opposites from each other. Can't get further away from each other on that color wheel. So in this panel from, gosh, I forget what comic book it's from, sorry. Using these two colors that are opposites, we have this sort of setup of a story that's very uneasy, right? Look at this guy's face right here. He's shocked. This video game is screaming at him. Mr. T is screaming at him. So they're trying to use color in this panel to give the viewer, the reader, a feeling of, ooh, something's weird here. All right, let's do the one more, analogous. This word, if I could change one thing about color theory, I'd change that word. It's just a hard word to remember, a hard word to spell. I misspell it every single time I write it. Analogous. What it means is a section of the color wheel of colors that are near each other. So right here in this wheel, we have yellow, green, yellow, I'm sorry, yellow, green, yellow, yellow, orange, orange, red, orange. So we have these colors here. And if we look, those are the colors being used in this painting. Nothing else. No purple, no blue, just this section of the color wheel. All right. Over here in the painting of the grapes and the pear, we have this section of the color wheel from purple with some blues and green, yellow, green, all these colors here. No reds, no oranges, tiny little bit of orange right there, but not really, not a large portion of this painting, but this is it. That's all it is. And then down here, even less. We only have 4 colors being used. We have red, red violet, violet, and blue violet. And that's all you see in here. No yellows, no greens. All right. And what that does, it just makes a painting or a drawing, a work of art, just feel calm. It makes it feel very harmonious. Everything kind of goes together. And it goes together because these colors are neighbors. All right, think of it like that, like neighbors. Neighbors that have grown up together, that know each other. They're very comfortable with each other. So if you use colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, it just looks like they go together. They're not fighting like this. It's a very different feel between these two works of art and these three. Right? I hope you see that too. All right. That's going to be it for me today. We're at the end of the period. So if you want to take off, go ahead. I will see you tomorrow. We'll continue on with this weird color stuff.